Lucas Reed slammed his fist down on the wooden table so hard the silverware jumped 3 inches into the air. The young waitress flinched. The couple at the next table turned and stared. And the half-empty glass of ice water tipped over, spilling across the white linen tablecloth like a slow creeping confession of everything he was feeling inside. 23 minutes, he muttered through clenched teeth, his voice low and dangerous. 23 goddamn minutes. He grabbed his jacket. He was done. Done with blind dates, done with his so-called friends, done with pretending he still had any hope left in this world. But what happened in the next 60 seconds would change Lucas Reed's life forever, and break him open in ways a Navy man like him never thought possible. Before we begin, drop a comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story is traveling tonight. And if you believe second chances are real, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because what you're about to hear is the kind of story that reminds you why we never stop hoping. Now, let's begin. The morning sun crept through the blinds of the small 2-bedroom house on Maple Street, painting thin golden stripes across the worn hardwood floor. Lucas Reed had been awake for 2 hours already. He always was. 46 years old, 20 years in the United States Navy, and his body still woke up at 0500 hours like clockwork, whether he wanted it to or not. He stood at the kitchen counter in a faded gray t-shirt and sweatpants, pouring coffee into a chipped blue mug that read "World's Okayest Dad." Ethan had given it to him 3 Father's Days ago, and Lucas had laughed so hard he'd nearly spit out his drink. Now, it was the only mug he ever used. Heavy footsteps came thudding down the hallway. 12-year-old Ethan Reed shuffled into the kitchen, his curly black hair sticking up in every direction, his oversized sleep shirt hanging off one shoulder. "Morning, Dad?" "Morning, son. Pancakes or eggs?" "Both." Lucas raised one eyebrow. "Both, huh? You growing again?" "Coach said I gotta bulk up if I want to make point guard next season." "Then both it is." Lucas turned to the stove, cracking eggs into a pan with one hand while reaching for the pancake mix with the other. His movements were efficient, practiced military. Every morning the same routine. Every morning the same kitchen. Every morning just him and Ethan the way it had been for the last 4 years. Ethan slid into the chair at the kitchen table and opened his school tablet. "Dad." "Marcus called yesterday." Lucas's hand froze over the pan. "Marcus called the house phone. He called my phone, said he couldn't get through to yours." "That's because I had it on silent. On purpose." Ethan looked up from his screen, a small grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "He said you've been ignoring him for a week." 2 weeks. "Why?" Lucas flipped the eggs. "Because Marcus is up to something." "Like what?" "Like he's got that voice, the one he gets when he and Dwayne are cooking up some kind of trouble. I've known that man 25 years, Ethan. I know his voices." Ethan laughed a bright, easy sound that filled the small kitchen. "Maybe he just misses you, Dad." "Marcus doesn't miss anyone. Marcus schemes." "Schemes aren't always bad." Lucas slid the eggs onto a plate, then poured pancake batter into the pan. He didn't say anything for a long moment. The only sound was the soft sizzle of the batter hitting the hot surface. "Dad, you ever think about, dating somebody?" The pancake bubbled in the pan. Lucas didn't move, didn't even blink. "Ethan, eat your eggs." "I'm just asking, and I'm just saying eat your eggs." But Ethan didn't pick up his fork. He sat there 12 years old, staring at his father with those big brown eyes that looked so much like his mother's, it sometimes physically hurt Lucas to look at him too long. "Mrs. Patterson down the street said her husband used to be sad like you. Then he met somebody, and now they laugh all the time." "I'm not sad." "Dad." "Ethan, I said I'm not—" "Dad, you don't laugh." The words hit Lucas harder than any punch he'd ever taken in 20 years of Navy hand-to-hand combat training. He stood there at the stove spatula in hand, and he couldn't think of a single thing to say back. Because his son was right. When was the last time he'd laughed? Really laughed? Not the polite chuckle he gave the cashier at the grocery store. Not the forced smile he wore at Ethan's basketball games. A real deep-down belly laugh, The kind that made your eyes water and your stomach hurt. He couldn't remember. He flipped the pancake. Burnt. He scraped it into the trash and started over. Eat your egg, son. The bus comes at 7:15. Ethan watched his father for another moment. Then he picked up his fork and started eating in silence. By 8:30 a.m., Ethan was at school, and Lucas was alone in the house. He'd already done the dishes, made the bed, and started a load of laundry. He was sitting on the small back porch with his second cup of coffee when his phone started buzzing on the wooden railing beside him. He looked at the screen. Marcus. He let it ring. 3 seconds after the call ended, a text came through. Marcus. Pick up the damn phone, Reed. Lucas sighed and set the coffee down. The phone rang again. This time he answered. What do you want, Marcus? That's how you greet your oldest friend, 25 years of friendship, and that's the energy. It's 8:30 in the morning. It's 8:30 in the morning somewhere. Listen, Reed, me and Dwayne, we've been talking. That's never good. Hear me out, brother, just hear me out. No. You don't even know what I'm gonna say. I don't have to know. The answer is no. There was a pause on the other end. Then Marcus laughed, that big, loud, infectious laugh that had once gotten the three of them thrown out of 3 different bars in Norfolk back in their Navy days. Reed, listen to me. Listen. You haven't been on a date in 4 years. That's not true. When? 2000 and... Lucas trailed off. Exactly. 4 years, brother. 4 years. That's not living, that's surviving. And I'm telling you right now, we are not letting you die alone in that little house with nobody but Ethan and a coffee mug for company. I'm not dying alone. You're 46, Reed. You ain't getting any prettier. Marcus. Friday night, 7 o'clock. The Lakeside Cafe over on Ridgewood. There's a woman gonna be there. Her name is Mara. She's a friend of Dwayne's wife's sister. You're gonna show up. You're gonna sit down. You're gonna have 1 drink and 1 conversation, and then you can go back to your monk life if that's what you want. No. Reed. I said no, Marcus. Lucas. The use of his first name made Lucas pause. Marcus only ever called him Reed, or brother. The only time he'd ever heard his given name come out of Marcus's mouth was the day his wife had walked out the front door with 2 suitcases and never looked back. Marcus had stood in his kitchen that night and called him Lucas while pouring him a glass of bourbon and not saying anything else for 3 hours. Lucas, Marcus said again, softer this time. Your boy is 12. In 6 years he's going to college. And then what? You gonna sit in that house alone and rot? Brother, I love you. We love you. Just 1 date. 1. That's all I'm asking. Lucas closed his eyes. He could hear Ethan's voice from that morning. Dad, you don't laugh. Friday, he heard himself say. Friday, 7 o'clock, Lakeside Cafe. She's beautiful, brother, smart, successful. You're gonna thank me. I'm not gonna thank you. You're gonna thank me. Marcus, I swear to God, if this is some kind of joke, it's not a joke. But there was something in Marcus's voice. A little something. A little hitch. A little laugh underneath the words. And Lucas knew his oldest friend well enough to know when he was being played. Marcus. Friday, brother. Wear the blue shirt. The one your wife bought you. Don't talk about her. Sorry. Wear the blue shirt anyway. It looks good on you. The line went dead. Lucas sat on the porch for a long time, staring at the phone in his hand. Then he set it down beside his coffee and looked out at the small backyard. The grass needed to be cut. The fence needed to be repaired. The bird feeder Ethan had built in 3rd grade was hanging crooked from the oak tree. There was always something that needed fixing, and nobody to fix it but him. By Friday afternoon, Lucas was already regretting it. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror in his old navy dress shirt, the dark blue one his ex-wife had picked out for him at a department store 8 years ago. He hadn't worn it since the divorce. He'd almost thrown it out 100 times. But every time he'd reached into the closet to grab it, something stopped him. Ethan came into the bathroom and leaned against the doorframe, watching his father struggle with the top button. You look nice, Dad. I look like I'm going to a funeral. You look nice. Lucas turned and looked at his son. Ethan was grinning. A big, wide, hopeful grin. You're really excited about this, aren't you? Lucas said. Yeah. Why? Ethan shrugged. Because. You haven't put on a nice shirt in a long time. Lucas turned back to the mirror. He couldn't argue with that. Dad. What if you like her? I'm not gonna like her. But what if you do? Lucas pressed his lips together. He looked at his own reflection and saw a man with too much gray in his beard and too many lines around his eyes. A tired man. A worn-out man. A man who had stopped expecting anything good to happen to him a very long time ago. Then I'll like her son. But I'm not gonna like her. Okay, Dad. Ethan walked out of the bathroom, and Lucas heard him pad down the hallway to his bedroom. A second later, music started playing softly from Ethan's room. Some kind of pop song. The same one he'd been playing on repeat for 2 weeks. Lucas finished buttoning his shirt and grabbed his keys off the dresser. Mrs. Patterson from next door had agreed to keep an eye on Ethan for the evening. She was the closest thing the boy had to a grandmother on this side of the country, and she always made him cookies and let him stay up past his bedtime watching old movies. Lucas knocked on Ethan's door. I'm heading out, son. Mrs. Patterson's gonna come over in 10 minutes. Okay, Dad. Lock the door behind me. I will. And don't eat all the cookies before she gets here. I won't. Ethan? Yeah. The door opened. Ethan stood there, basketball in his hands, looking up at his father. I love you, son. I love you too, Dad. Have fun. I'm not gonna have fun. Have fun anyway. Lucas almost smiled. Almost. He ruffled his son's curly hair and walked out of the house. The Lakeside Cafe was a small place on the edge of town, the kind of restaurant that had been there since the 1970s and never bothered to change much. The wooden sign out front was faded by decades of sun. The parking lot was gravel. The lake behind the cafe was small, more of a pond really, but on warm spring evenings, the water reflected the sky in colors that almost made you forget you were in the middle of nowhere. Lucas pulled his old Ford pickup into the lot at exactly 6:55 p.m. He sat in the truck for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the front door of the cafe. You can still leave, he said out loud to himself. You can still leave right now and tell Marcus she was a no-show. But he didn't leave. He got out of the truck, walked across the gravel and pulled open the front door of the cafe. A small bell jingled overhead. The hostess, a young woman with red hair and a bright smile, looked up from her stand. Just one tonight, sir. I have a reservation. Read. She checked her tablet. Read. Yes, here it is. 7 o'clock party of 2. Right this way. She led him through the small dining room to a table by the window overlooking the lake. He sat down with his back to the wall the way he always did, the way every military man does, so he could see the door. Your guest hasn't arrived yet, the hostess said. Can I get you something to drink while you wait? Just water for now. Thank you. She nodded and walked away. Lucas looked at his watch. 7:01 p.m. He looked at the door. 7:03 p.m. He looked at the menu. 7:07 p.m. He looked at the door again. 7:12 p.m. The waitress came by and asked if he was ready to order. He said no, his guest was just running a little late. She nodded politely and walked away. 7:15 p.m. He pulled out his phone. No missed calls, no texts. He scrolled through his contacts and found Marcus's name. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then he put the phone down on the table. 7:18 p.m. He looked around the small cafe. The other tables were filled with couples. An elderly pair holding hands across a candle. A young couple laughing about something on a phone screen. A middle-aged man and woman talking quietly over wine. And him, alone, at a table for 2. His jaw tightened. 7:20 p.m. The waitress came back. Are you sure I can't get you a drink, sir? Maybe just a small appetizer while you wait. No, thank you. It's no trouble. I said no. He hadn't meant for it to come out that sharp. Her smile faded just a little. She nodded and walked away. He immediately regretted snapping at her. That wasn't him. That had never been him. But something in his chest was burning something hot and tight and angry, and he couldn't stop it from leaking out. 7:23 p.m. He picked up the glass of ice water in front of him. Drank half of it in one swallow. Set it down. His mind was racing. This is a joke. This is exactly what I knew it was. Marcus and Dwayne. Setting me up. Laughing about it right now over beers somewhere. Old Lucas sitting alone at a table for two on a Friday night. Look at him. Look at the lonely Navy man pretending he can still date. His fist clenched on the table. I came out here. I put on this stupid shirt. I left my son with the neighbor. I drove 20 minutes across town to sit at a table for two, like some kind of fool waiting for a woman who isn't coming. The waitress was watching him from across the room. The hostess was watching him too. The elderly couple at the next table glanced over. The old woman gave him a small, sympathetic smile. The kind of smile you give someone at a funeral. That was when Lucas Reed lost it. He slammed his fist down on the wooden table so hard, the silverware jumped 3 inches into the air. The young waitress flinched. The elderly couple at the next table turned and stared, and the half-empty glass of ice water tipped over, spilling across the white linen tablecloth like a slow creeping confession of everything he was feeling inside. 23 minutes, he muttered through clenched teeth, his voice low and dangerous. 23 goddamn minutes. He grabbed his jacket off the back of the chair. He pulled out his wallet, threw a $10 bill on the table for the water and the trouble. He stood up. He turned toward the door. He took 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. And then the bell above the front door of the Lakeside Cafe jingled. Lucas stopped walking. He didn't know why he stopped. He hadn't even looked up. He was halfway across the dining room, his keys already in his hand, his jaw still clenched so tight his teeth hurt. There was no reason in the world for him to stop and look at the door. But he did. He looked up, and there she was. She was standing in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Her dark hair slightly windswept, holding a small leather purse in one hand and her phone in the other. She was wearing a deep burgundy dress that fell just below her knees and a pair of simple black heels. She was tall. She was striking. And her eyes were already searching the dining room looking for someone. Looking for him. Their eyes met across the small dining room. She froze. He froze. The whole cafe seemed to freeze. And then her face crumpled. Just for a second. Just for half a second. Her hand came up to her mouth and her eyes filled with something that looked an awful lot like shame. "Oh God," she said loud enough for him to hear from across the room. "Oh God, you're still here." Lucas didn't move. She walked toward him quickly, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. The other diners were watching now. The waitress was watching. The hostess was watching. She stopped 2 feet in front of him. "You're Lucas, right? Lucas Reed?" "Yes." "I'm Mara Whitfield. I am so sorry." "You're 23 minutes late." "I know. I was leaving. I can see that. I thought this was a joke." She blinked. "A joke? My friends. I thought they set me up. I thought you weren't coming." She stood there, this elegant woman in the burgundy dress, and Lucas watched the color drain from her face. Then come back. Then drain again. "I should have called," she said quietly. "I should have called you. I couldn't. I couldn't get the words out." "What words?" She looked down at her hands. Then she looked back up at him. And what Lucas Reed saw in her eyes in that moment was something he hadn't seen in another human being in a very, very long time. He saw himself. He saw the same exhaustion, the same hurt, the same wall, the same tired, broken-down look of a person who had once believed in something and then watched it shatter into 1,000 pieces. She took a small breath. "My divorce," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My divorce was finalized this afternoon." At 3 o'clock. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my lawyer's office for 2 hours. I forgot. I forgot we had this. And then when I remembered, I almost didn't come. I almost just went home and got into bed and never came out again. Lucas didn't say anything. She kept going. And then I thought about how you would be sitting here. Some stranger. Some man I've never met. Sitting here alone. Waiting. And I couldn't do that to you. So I drove here, as fast as I could. And I'm 23 minutes late and I look like I've been crying because I have been crying, and I am so sorry, Mr. Reed. I am so sorry. The dining room was silent. The waitress had stopped pouring water at another table. The hostess was holding a menu against her chest. The elderly couple at the next table were watching them with their mouths slightly open. Lucas Reed looked down at this woman, this stranger, this CEO in a burgundy dress whose entire life had apparently just fallen apart at 3 o'clock that afternoon. And something inside his chest, something that had been locked up tight for 4 long years, made a small sound. A small, quiet, almost broken sound, like a key turning in a lock that hadn't been opened in a very, very long time. He looked at the table by the window. He looked at the door. He looked back at her. And then Lucas Reed, the Navy man, the single father, the man who didn't believe in love anymore, did something he hadn't done in 4 years. He pulled out a chair. "Sit down, Mara," he said quietly. "Sit down. I'll order us some water." She didn't move at first. She just stood there looking at him. Like she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Like she'd been expecting him to walk out the door and tell her she'd ruined his evening. "Are you sure?" she whispered. Lucas nodded once. "I'm sure." She let out a small breath, a tiny shaking breath, and then she sat down. The waitress hurried over. The elderly couple turned back to their dinner. The hostess set down her menu. The whole cafe slowly came back to life, and Lucas Reed sat down across from a stranger named Mara Whitfield and didn't know it yet, but his entire life had just changed forever. The waitress walked over slowly, like she wasn't quite sure if it was safe to approach the table yet. She was a young girl, maybe 19, with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail and a small notepad in her trembling hand. Can I get you both something to drink?" Lucas looked up at her. His face softened. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "For earlier, for snapping at you. That wasn't right." The girl blinked. "Oh, it's okay, sir." "No, it isn't. I was rude, and you didn't deserve it. I'm sorry." A small surprised smile crossed her face. "Thank you, sir. That's really kind of you to say. What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah, I'm Lucas, and this is Mara. We'll have 2 glasses of water, and whatever wine you'd recommend for the lady. Something nice." "We have a really good Cabernet by the glass." "2 of those, then." "I don't drink wine," Mara said quickly, almost apologetically. Lucas turned back to her. "What do you drink?" "Tea. At dinner. At dinner. With breakfast. With lunch. I drink a lot of tea." He almost smiled. "1 Cabernet, then. And a hot tea. Whatever kind you've got." "We have black, green, and chamomile." "Chamomile," Mara said. "Please." Sarah scribbled the order on her notepad and hurried away. The dining room was slowly returning to its normal hum, but Lucas could still feel the eyes of the elderly couple at the next table flicking over now and then, watching them with that quiet curiosity older folks have for the lives of strangers. Mara folded her hands on the table in front of her. Her fingers were shaking just a little. She looked down at them like she was trying to make them stop. "I really am sorry," she said again. "You already apologized." "I know, but I want to apologize again. Because I keep thinking about you sitting here, by yourself, for 23 minutes, and I keep thinking about how that must have felt." Lucas leaned back in his chair. He didn't know what to say to that. Most people in his life didn't think too hard about how things felt. They thought about what got done, what got fixed, what got handled. Nobody ever sat across from him and said, "I keep thinking about how that must have felt," It felt fine, he said finally. No, it didn't. You don't know me. How do you know how it felt? Because I could see your face when I walked in, and it didn't look fine. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and there were soft lines at the corners that told him she was probably somewhere in her early 40s. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling around her face. There was a small smudge of mascara under her left eye, the kind that comes from crying and not having time to fix it before walking into a room full of strangers. She looked tired. The way he looked tired. The way you look when you've been carrying something heavy for so long, you can't remember what it feels like to set it down. I thought I was being stood up, he said. I know. I thought my friends had played a joke on me. Why would your friends play a joke on you? He shook his head slowly. Long story. I have time. Do you? I have nothing but time tonight, Mr. Reed. I cleared my whole evening. I was supposed to celebrate. Celebrate what? She looked at him for a long moment. My freedom. The word hung in the air between them. Freedom. Such a heavy word for such a small night. Sarah came back with the drinks. She set the glass of Cabernet in front of Lucas, the cup of chamomile tea in front of Mara, and 2 glasses of water between them. She asked if they were ready to order food. They both said no, not yet. She nodded politely and disappeared again. Mara wrapped both her hands around the warm teacup. She didn't drink it. She just held it. My lawyer's name is Janet, she said quietly. She's been my lawyer for 14 months. 14 months of paperwork. 14 months of phone calls. 14 months of him fighting me on every single thing. The house, the cars, the savings accounts, the artwork. Even the dog. He didn't even like the dog. But he wanted the dog because he knew I loved her. What's the dog's name? She looked up, surprised. Penny. Did you keep her? I kept her. Good. A small, sad smile crossed her face. Yes, good. That was probably the only good part of today. What happened today? She took a small sip of her tea, then another, like she was buying herself time to figure out how much to say to a stranger. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, I sat in a small conference room on the 18th floor of a building downtown, and I signed the last piece of paper, and the marriage that I spent 11 years of my life trying to save officially ended. Just like that, with a pen, in about 4 seconds. Lucas didn't say anything, and then I walked out to my car, and I sat there, and I thought now what for 11 years I had been someone's wife. I had a life. I had plans. I had Sunday morning routines and shared toothpaste and a side of the bed. And in 4 seconds, all of that was just over. She finally took a real drink of her tea. And then I remembered, tonight, this date. And I looked at the time, and it was already 5:30, and my mascara was running, and my hair was a mess, and I just kept thinking I can't go. I can't sit across from a stranger tonight. I can't pretend to be a normal person tonight. Why did you come? She set the teacup down. Because Linda is Dwayne's sister-in-law. She's been my best friend for 22 years. And when I called her from the parking lot crying and told her I wasn't coming, she said something to me. She said, Mara, you have spent the last 11 years saying no to your own life. Don't start tonight by saying no again. Lucas stared at her. That's why I came, Mr. Reed, because my best friend told me to stop saying no to my own life. He took a slow drink of his wine. He didn't even taste it. You can call me Lucas. Lucas? Yes. Lucas. That's a strong name. It was my grandfather's name. He was a preacher down in Mississippi. I never met him. He died before I was born. But my mother said he was the strongest man she ever knew, and she wanted me to carry his name. Did you carry it well? He thought about that for a long second. I tried. She smiled. The first real smile he'd seen from her. It was a small thing, a tired thing, but it was real. Linda told me about you, you know, a little bit. She said you were a Navy man. She said you had a son. I have a son, Ethan. He's 12. 12 is a wonderful age. 12 is a hard age. Both can be true. He almost smiled again. Both can be true. He took another drink. The wine was warmer now. He could actually taste it, something slow and deep and a little bit sweet. "What about you?" he asked. "Kids?" She was quiet for a long moment. "No. Just no. We tried. For a long time. It didn't happen. I'm sorry." "It's all right. It was a long time ago. I think part of me always knew it wasn't going to happen. Not with him. He wasn't the kind of man you bring children into the world with. I see that now. I didn't see it then." Lucas nodded slowly. He understood that. He understood it down to his bones. He had stood in his own kitchen for a long time after his wife left, putting together all the little signs he had missed. The phone calls she took in the other room, the late nights at work, the way she stopped looking at him across the dinner table. "You see it later," he said quietly. "Always later. Never when you need to." That's exactly right. Why does it work like that? I don't know. I've thought about it a lot. I think love makes you blind on purpose. Because if you saw everything, you'd never let yourself love anybody. He turned his wine glass in his hands. That's a sad way to think about love. Is it? Yeah. I used to think about love differently. I used to think it was the best thing in the world, the thing that makes everything else worth it. What changed? She gave a small, tired laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you give when you're too exhausted to cry anymore. I found out my husband had been seeing another woman for 3 years. 3 years, Lucas. While I was working 60-hour weeks trying to build a company. While I was sending him good morning texts every morning and bringing home dinner every night and planning vacations and saving money for a house in the country. 3 years. How did you find out? His phone. He left it on the kitchen counter one Saturday morning. He went out to the garage to get something, and it buzzed. I wasn't going to look. I had never once looked at his phone in 11 years, but it buzzed twice, 3 times, 4 times, and something in my stomach, I don't know, something just told me. And you looked. I looked, and there were photographs. She took another sip of her tea. Her hands were a little steadier now. And you know what the worst part was? What? It wasn't the photographs. It wasn't even the woman. The worst part was that when he came back inside from the garage, he looked at me, and he knew. He knew I knew. And he didn't even try to deny it. He just stood there in the kitchen and said I was going to tell you eventually. That was it. I was going to tell you eventually. Like he was talking about a dentist appointment. Lucas closed his eyes for a second. I'm sorry. Yeah. How long ago was that? 16 months. 16 months of fighting him in court because he didn't even have the decency to walk away cleanly. He wanted everything. He wanted to punish me for finding out. So he hired the most expensive lawyer in the city, and he tried to take everything I had built. And today I finally signed the last piece of paper. And I won. Mostly. I kept the company. I kept the house. I kept Penny. And I lost 11 years of my life. She looked up at him. And that's why I'm 23 minutes late. Lucas Reed. Because I sat in my car for 2 hours after winning the worst victory of my entire life. And I forgot that you were sitting here waiting for me. And I am so deeply, deeply sorry. The dining room was quiet. Lucas could hear the soft clink of silverware from the elderly couple's table. He could hear the hum of the refrigerator behind the bar. He could hear the soft music playing through the speakers above them, some old jazz tune from the 1950s that his father used to play on Sunday afternoons. He set his wine glass down. Mara. Yes. You don't owe me an apology. I do. You don't. You really don't. You owe me an explanation, and you gave me one. That's all. She looked down at her hands. You're a lot kinder than I expected, Lucas Reed. Don't say that yet. You don't know me yet. I know enough. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And he felt something shift inside his chest. Something small. Something almost imperceptible. like a door he had nailed shut a long time ago was suddenly creaking on its hinges. He didn't know what to do with the feeling. He hadn't had a feeling like that in 4 years. So he did what Navy men do. He changed the subject. "You said you have a company." She looked up. "I do." "What kind of company?" Well, it's a financial services firm. Wealth management mostly. We help people who have built businesses figure out how to protect what they've built, how to plan for retirement, how to pass things down to their children, that kind of thing. You're a CEO. I am. How big? 412 employees, offices in 3 states. Lucas raised his eyebrows slowly. That's not a small company. It's not. You built that. I built that. From nothing. From nothing. From a one-room office above a bakery in 2007. The recession hit 6 months later, and I almost went bankrupt 3 different times in the first 2 years. But I kept going. I worked 20-hour days. I slept on the floor of that little office sometimes. I ate cereal for dinner for about 18 months straight. And now you have 400 employees. Now I have 412 employees. He shook his head slowly. That's something to be proud of. It is. I am. Some days, most days actually. But today my husband's lawyer spent 4 hours trying to convince a judge that I am a, quote, unstable woman who built her business on the backs of others and cannot be trusted to manage her own assets. So today, I am not feeling especially proud of anything. That's what they said about you. That's what they said about me. Lucas took a deep breath in through his nose. He could feel his jaw tightening again. Not at her this time. At a man he had never met. A man who had spent 3 years cheating on this woman and then sat in a courtroom and tried to break her in front of a judge. That's a small man, Lucas said quietly. A small, scared man. Yes, men like that. They hate strong women, because strong women remind them that they aren't strong themselves. She looked at him for a long second. That's a very wise thing to say, Lucas Reed. 20 years in the Navy. You meet a lot of men. You learn the difference between the strong ones and the loud ones. And you can tell. I can tell. Which one are you? The question caught him off guard. He sat with it for a moment. Most days I don't feel like either one. What do you feel like? He turned the wine glass slowly between his fingers. I feel like a tired man who's trying to raise a good son in a world that doesn't make it easy. She smiled. A soft, real smile. That sounds like the strong kind to me. He didn't know what to say to that. He took another drink of his wine. Sarah came back. Have you folks decided on food yet? I'm sorry, Sarah, Lucas said. We haven't even looked at the menu. Give us another 10 minutes. Take all the time you need, sir. She walked away. Mara picked up her menu. I should probably eat something. I haven't eaten since this morning. What did you have this morning? Half a piece of toast. Mara. I know. You need to eat. I know. I haven't had an appetite in a long time. You will tonight. Order the steak. The steak. Trust me, Lakeside Cafe has been here since I was a boy. They're famous for their steak. She raised an eyebrow. You used to come here as a boy. My father used to bring me here on Saturdays. He was a long-haul trucker. He'd be gone all week. And on Saturdays when he came home, he'd take me here for lunch. Always the same booth. Always the same order. Cheeseburger and a Coke for me. Steak and black coffee for him. That's a beautiful memory. Yeah, it is. Is your father still alive? No. He passed in 2011. Heart attack. He was 67. I'm sorry. Thank you. She set the menu down without looking at it. Lucas. Yes. Will you order for me? I don't know what to choose. And I'm tired of making decisions today. He looked at her across the table. This stranger. This woman who had just signed away 11 years of her life. This CEO of 412 people who couldn't manage to pick a meal off a menu. He nodded. I'll order for you. When Sarah came back, Lucas ordered the steak for both of them. Medium rare, mashed potatoes on the side, house salad, 2 more drinks. Sarah scribbled it all down and disappeared. Mara took a slow breath. Thank you. For what way? For not leaving. You almost made it out the door. I saw it on your face. He thought about it. He thought about the moment the bell had jingled above the door, and he had stopped walking. He still didn't know why he had stopped. He hadn't even looked up at first. There had been no reason in the world for his feet to stop moving, but they had. I don't know why I stayed, he said quietly. I had every reason to leave. And yet. She picked up her tea again. She held it in both hands. The steam rose softly between them. Maybe, she said, the universe knew we both needed someone to sit across from tonight. Maybe. You don't believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore, Mara. I used to believe in a lot of things. Most of them turned out not to be true. What did you used to believe in? He turned the wine glass. I used to believe that if you were a good man, good things would happen to you. I used to believe that if you worked hard and kept your word and loved your family life would meet you halfway. And you don't believe that anymore. My wife left me 4 years ago. She left me and our son, who was 8 years old at the time. She left a note on the kitchen counter that said, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. That was it. 8 words. After 13 years of marriage, 8 words on a piece of yellow legal paper. Mara's eyes were soft. Lucas, my son was at school when she left. I had to pick him up from the bus stop that afternoon and walk him into a house that was missing his mother. I had to sit him down at that kitchen table and tell him that his mom wasn't coming home. He was 8, Mara. He didn't understand. He kept asking when she was coming back. For weeks. Every night. When is Mom coming back? And I didn't have an answer. Where is she now? I don't know. She doesn't call. She doesn't write. She sent a birthday card the first year. Nothing since then. Ethan stopped asking about her around the time he turned 10. He just stopped. And that broke my heart in a different way than her leaving did. Does he ever talk about her now? Almost never. Sometimes he'll mention something he remembers. A trip we took. A song she used to sing. But he doesn't ask about her anymore. He doesn't ask if she'll come back. He just lives his life and plays basketball and does his homework and reminds me to take out the trash. He sounds like a wonderful boy. He is. He's the best thing in my life. He's the only thing that kept me from falling apart after she left. She nodded slowly. And that's why you don't believe in love anymore. He didn't answer at first. He just stared at the wine in his glass. The deep red color, almost black in the low light. I believe in love for him, he finally said. I believe in loving my son. I believe in showing up for him every day and making him breakfast and going to his basketball games and helping him with his algebra homework, even though I haven't done algebra since 1996. I believe in that kind of love. But not the other kind. The other kind almost killed me, Mara. I don't know if I have it in me to almost die from that again. She set her teacup down. She reached her hand across the table. She didn't touch him. She just laid her hand flat on the white tablecloth, her fingers stretched out toward him. Open. Quiet. Waiting. I understand, she said. He looked at her hand on the table. He looked at her face. And slowly he reached his own hand across the table. He didn't take her hand. He didn't quite touch her. He just laid his hand down beside hers. His fingers stretched out toward her, almost touching, but not quite. 2 strangers. 2 broken people. 2 hands lying side by side on a white tablecloth in a small cafe on the edge of town on a Friday night in early spring. Sarah came back with 2 plates of steak. She didn't say a word. She just set the plates down quietly and walked away. Lucas slowly pulled his hand back. So did Mara. But something had passed between them in that small moment. Something neither of them had words for yet. Something neither of them was ready to look at directly. Eat, he said softly. She picked up her fork. Yes. she said. I'll eat. They ate slowly. Neither one of them said much for the first few minutes. Lucas watched Mara cut into her steak, watched her chew carefully, watched her eyes close just slightly when she swallowed. Good, he asked. It's the best meal I've had in a year. That's the steak or that's the company? She looked up at him surprised, the corner of her mouth turned up. Lucas Reed, are you flirting with me? I don't know what I'm doing, Mara. I haven't done this in a long time. Done what? Sat across from a woman. And how is it so far? He thought about it. He turned his fork over in his hand. Terrifying. She laughed. A real laugh this time. Not the tired, broken laugh from before. A real quiet, surprised laugh that lit up her whole face. Terrifying. That's not what a woman wants to hear, Lucas. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do this. Yes, you do. You're doing it right now. I'm eating steak. You're being honest. That's the only thing that matters in a conversation like this. He took another drink of his wine. The glass was almost empty now. Tell me something, Mara. What? Tell me something good. Something happy. About your life. Anything. Why? Because we've been talking about heavy things all night. And I want to hear something light. Just for a minute. Tell me one good thing. She set her fork down. She thought for a long moment. Penny. The dog. The dog. She's a golden retriever. She's 7 years old. She has one ear that stands up and one ear that flops down. And every single morning, no matter what, she comes into my bedroom at exactly 6:15, puts her chin on the edge of the mattress and stares at me until I open my eyes. She does it every single day. She's done it for 7 years. And every morning when I open my eyes and see that one ear standing up and that one ear flopping down, I forget just for a second that anything is wrong in the world. Lucas smiled. A small, real smile. That's a good one. That's my best one. Now you ask me. Tell me something good, Lucas. He didn't have to think about it. 2 summers ago, Ethan was 10. We drove down to North Carolina for a week, just the two of us. I rented a little cabin near the Outer Banks. And one night we were sitting on the back porch of this little cabin and the sky was so full of stars I thought my eyes were lying to me. And Ethan looked up and he said, Dad, are we going to be okay? And I said, Yeah, son, we're going to be okay. And he said, Promise? And I said, Promise. And then he leaned his head against my shoulder and we sat there for a long time, not talking, just looking up. And in that moment, I believed it. I believed we were going to be okay, for the first time since his mother left. Mara was looking at him with tears in her eyes. Lucas, don't. That's beautiful. Don't make me cry in this restaurant, Mara. Don't do that to me. I'm not trying to make you cry. Well, you're doing a real good job of it. She wiped at her eye with the back of her hand. They both laughed. A small, tired, shared laugh. The dining room was emptier now. The elderly couple had paid and left. The young couple by the door had moved on. There were only a few tables still occupied, and the lights had been turned down a notch lower for the late hour. Sarah came over with the wine bottle. Another glass, sir. Lucas looked at his watch. It was almost 10 o'clock. He had been at this table for 3 hours. He looked at Mara. One more. One more. Sarah filled his glass and brought a fresh pot of hot water for Mara's tea. When she walked away, Mara looked at Lucas across the table. I have a confession to make. What? When I walked in tonight and saw you standing there with your jacket in your hand, I almost turned around and walked back out the door. I almost left. I was going to text Linda from the parking lot and tell her the whole thing was a disaster and never speak to her again. What stopped you? You did. Me. You. Your face. The way you looked at me when our eyes met. There was anger in your face, and there was hurt. But there was something else too. What? There was kindness. Underneath all of it, there was kindness. And I don't know how to explain it, but I knew right then that you were a good man. Even angry. Even ready to walk out the door. You were a good man. And I haven't been around a good man in a very long time. Lucas didn't know what to say. He just looked down at his wine glass. Mara. Yes. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why would a woman like you, a successful woman, a smart woman, a beautiful woman, why would you agree to a blind date in the first place? You could have anyone. She gave a small, sad smile. Because anyone isn't what I want. I had anyone for 11 years. I had a man who looked good on paper and looked good in pictures and looked good standing next to me at company parties. And he turned out to be the loneliest thing I have ever owned. I don't want anyone, Lucas. I want someone. That's a brave thing to want. Is it? Yeah, most people just want anyone. Most people are too tired to want someone. What about you? What about me? What do you want? He was quiet for a long time. He turned the wine glass slowly between his fingers. He didn't look at her. I haven't let myself want anything in 4 years, Mara. I want my son to be happy. I want him to grow up strong and kind and to make good choices. I want him to have a better life than I did. That's what I want. That's what you want for him. What do you want for you? The question was so small and so big, and it landed in his chest like a stone dropped in a still pond. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because he didn't know. He hadn't asked himself that question in so long he'd forgotten how to answer it. I don't know, he finally said. It's okay. I really don't know, Mara. I don't even know how to think about it. It's okay. You don't have to know tonight. She reached across the table again. This time her fingertips brushed his. Just barely. Just for a second. And then she pulled her hand back and picked up her tea. But Lucas felt that touch all the way down to his bones. He drove home that night with the windows down and the radio off. He didn't want music. He just wanted the cool spring air and the quiet hum of the road beneath his tires. He kept replaying the night in his head. Her face when she walked through the door. Her hand on the table. The sound of her laugh. The way she had said, I want someone, Lucas. Not anyone. Someone. He pulled into his driveway just before 11. Mrs. Patterson was sitting on his couch with a half-eaten plate of cookies on the coffee table and an old black-and-white movie playing on the TV. Ethan was asleep on the other end of the couch, his head on a pillow, his mouth slightly open, snoring softly. How was it? Mrs. Patterson whispered, standing up slowly. Lucas looked at his sleeping son, then at the older woman who had been kind to his family for years. It was... He paused. It was something, Mrs. Patterson. Something good or something bad. I don't know yet. Something. She smiled, a knowing, grandmotherly smile. Sometimes something is the best you can ask for, Lucas. You walk that boy to bed. I'll let myself out. Thank you, ma'am. Any time, sweetheart. She picked up her purse and left. Lucas walked over to the couch. He sat down on the edge of the cushion and looked at his sleeping son. Ethan's curly hair was sticking up in every direction. There was a chocolate smudge on the corner of his mouth. Hey, buddy. Ethan stirred. His eyes blinked open slowly. Dad. Yeah, it's me. Come on. Bed. What time is it? Almost 11? Did you have fun? Lucas brushed a piece of hair out of his son's eyes. Yeah, son, I think I did. Ethan's eyes opened wider. He sat up slowly. You did? Yeah. Like, a lot of fun. I don't know about a lot, but yeah, some. Ethan grinned. A big, sleepy 12-year-old grin. I told you, Dad. You told me what? I told you to have fun. Yeah, you did. Now go brush your teeth and get to bed. Ethan stumbled off the couch and shuffled down the hallway. Lucas heard the bathroom light click on. He heard the water running. He sat on the couch for a long time after Ethan's bedroom door closed. He pulled out his phone. There was a text waiting. Mara, thank you for staying tonight. M. He stared at the screen for a long minute. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed back. Lucas, thank you for showing up, even late. 3 dots appeared on the screen. They blinked for a long moment. "Mara, can I see you again?" He stared at the words. He felt his heart do something it hadn't done in 4 years. It sped up. Lucas. Yes, Mara. When Lucas. Whenever you want. Mara. Tomorrow? He almost laughed out loud. He hadn't expected that. Lucas. Tomorrow. Mara Coffee. 2 o'clock. There's a place on Elm Street called The Daily Grind. Do you know it, Lucas? I'll find it. Mara. Good night, Lucas Reed. Lucas. Good night? Mara Whitfield. He set the phone down on the coffee table. He sat in the dark for a long time. He didn't turn on any lights. He didn't make any noise. He just sat there in the small living room of the small house on Maple Street and thought about the way her hand had brushed his at the end of dinner. For the first time in 4 years. Lucas Reed went to bed smiling. The next afternoon at exactly 2 o'clock, Lucas walked into the Daily Grind. She was already there, sitting at a small table by the window, wearing jeans and a soft cream sweater and no makeup at all. Her hair was down this time. It fell around her shoulders in dark waves. She looked up when the bell over the door jingled. Her face broke into a smile. You came. I said I would. I wasn't sure. Mara. I said I would. He sat down across from her. There was already a hot tea in front of her and a black coffee waiting in front of his seat. How did you know what I drink? Lucky guess. Most Navy men drink it black. That's a stereotype. Was I wrong? No. She laughed. He laughed too, a small one. It surprised him. They sat in that coffee shop for 4 hours. They talked about everything. They talked about her business. They talked about his time in the Navy. They talked about Ethan. They talked about Penny the Golden Retriever. They talked about books they had read, and movies they hadn't seen, and places they had been, and places they wanted to go. By 6 o'clock, Lucas's coffee had gone cold 3 different times, and he hadn't even noticed. I have to get back, he said finally. Ethan has basketball practice at 7. Of course. Mara. Yes? I want to see you again. When? I don't know. When are you free? Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I have to be home with Ethan. Then bring him. Lucas paused. Bring him. I have a backyard. I have a grill. I have a golden retriever who would love a 12-year-old to throw a tennis ball for her. Bring him to dinner. Tomorrow night. At my house. Mara, I've never had a woman around him. Not since his mother left. I've never even introduced him to a woman. I know. Are you sure? I'm sure, Lucas. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, I want to do it the right way. I want to know your son. I want him to know me. I don't want to be a secret in your life. I've been a secret in someone's life. I'm not doing that again. He looked at her across the small table. Okay. Okay, tomorrow night. What time? 6 o'clock. I'll text you the address. He's a quiet kid. He might not say much. That's all right. I'm a quiet woman sometimes. We'll find something to talk about. He smiled. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. The next evening, Lucas sat in his truck in front of Mara's house for 2 full minutes before he could make himself open the door. The house was big. Bigger than he had expected. A 2-story brick colonial on a quiet street with old oak trees lining both sides. There was a wraparound porch and a wide front lawn, and a basketball hoop set up at the end of the driveway. A basketball hoop. He glanced over at his son in the passenger seat. Ethan was looking at the hoop with wide eyes. Dad, she has a hoop. I see that, son. Did you tell her I play? Yeah, I told her. Ethan looked at his father. You like her, don't you, Dad? I don't know yet. Yes, you do. Ethan? Yes, you do. Dad. Lucas didn't answer. He just pulled the keys out of the ignition. Come on, son. Let's go. They walked up the front steps together. Lucas rang the doorbell. Mara opened the door. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. There was flour on her cheek. "You're early," she said. "2 minutes." "That's early." "I'm a Navy man, Mara. 5 minutes early is on time. On time is late." She laughed. Then she looked down at Ethan. "You must be Ethan." "Yes, ma'am." "I'm Mara. Your dad has told me a lot about you." "He told me you have a dog." "I do. Her name is Penny. She's in the backyard. Do you want to meet her?" Ethan's eyes lit up. "Yes, ma'am." "Come on through, both of you." She led them through the house. The inside was warm and lived in, and full of soft lights and old books and framed photographs on every wall. Lucas had expected something colder, something more like a magazine. But it wasn't like that at all. It was a home. A real home. She opened the back door. A golden retriever came barreling across the yard. One ear standing up, one ear flopping down. Penny slammed into Ethan at full speed and started licking his face. Ethan was laughing. A loud, happy 12-year-old laugh. Lucas stood on the back porch and watched his son roll around in the grass with that dog. And something in his chest cracked open. Something he hadn't even known was sealed shut. He hadn't heard Ethan laugh like that in years. Mara came up beside him. She didn't say anything. She just stood there next to him on the porch and watched. "He doesn't laugh much," Lucas said quietly. "He's laughing now." "Yeah. That's a beautiful sound, Lucas." He nodded slowly. He couldn't trust his voice to say anything more than that. She put her hand on his arm, just for a second. Then she walked back inside to finish making dinner. The weeks that followed passed in a way Lucas didn't quite understand. He kept waiting for something to go wrong. He kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. He kept waiting for Mara to disappear, or for himself to ruin it, or for Ethan to push back, or for the universe to remind him that men like him weren't allowed to have nice things. But none of that happened. Instead, every Saturday night they had dinner at Mara's house. Sometimes she cooked. Sometimes Lucas grilled. Sometimes Ethan helped her bake cookies. Penny followed Ethan everywhere he went. The boy started talking about Penny like she was his own. On the third Saturday, Mara came to one of Ethan's basketball games. She sat in the bleachers next to Lucas and cheered when Ethan scored. Ethan looked up at the bleachers from the court and saw her there and waved. He had never waved at anyone in the bleachers besides his dad before. On the fifth Saturday, Lucas helped Mara fix a leaky faucet in her kitchen. She had been planning to call a plumber. He fixed it in 20 minutes with a wrench and some tape from his truck. She kissed him on the cheek when he finished. Just a small kiss. But it was the first time her lips had touched his skin. On the seventh Saturday, Ethan fell asleep on Mara's couch watching a movie. Lucas carried him out to the truck, and Mara walked them to the driveway. She stood there with her arms wrapped around herself in the cool spring night. "Lucas." "Yeah. I haven't had a Saturday night like this in a long time." "Me neither." "I don't want to scare you." "Then don't say anything that scares me." She smiled, a small, soft smile in the porch light. "Drive safe, Lucas Reed." "Good night, Mara." He drove home with his sleeping son in the passenger seat and his hands gripping the steering wheel. And somewhere on the dark road home, he realized something. He realized he was happy. For the first time in 4 years. He was happy, and it scared the hell out of him. The next morning, Marcus called. "Reed, brother, how's life?" "What do you want, Marcus?" "Just checking on you. Haven't heard from you in a while." "I've been busy." "Busy with what? Or should I say busy with who?" "Marcus." "Brother, you can't keep this from us. Dwayne is calling me 3 times a day. Linda told her sister, told his wife, told him that you and Mara have been seeing each other every weekend for 2 months. So, tell me. Tell me everything." Lucas was sitting on the back porch with his coffee. He looked out at the small backyard. The grass was finally cut. The fence was finally fixed. The bird feeder was finally hanging straight again. "Marcus." "Yeah, brother." "Thank you." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me. Thank you. For the date." "Lucas Reed, did you just thank me?" "Don't make a big deal out of it." Did you just thank me for the date I set you up on? I'm hanging up now, Marcus. Brother, wait. Lucas was already laughing. I'm hanging up. Reed, wait. He hung up. He sat on the porch with his coffee and laughed for a long time. That night, he and Mara sat on her back porch after Ethan had gone home with Mrs. Patterson for a sleepover. It was just the two of them. A bottle of wine for her this time. A cup of decaf for him. Penny was lying at their feet. Lucas. Yeah. I have to tell you something. The way she said it made his stomach drop. What? My ex-husband, Daniel. He filed something this week. With the court. He's reopening parts of the divorce. Lucas set his coffee down slowly. Reopening. He's claiming I hid assets during the proceedings. He's claiming I lied to the court. He's saying I owe him a settlement of close to $2 million. And he's saying that, as the founder and CEO of my company, I am, quote, demonstrating instability and poor judgment in my personal life that should call into question my professional fitness. Personal life. Yes. Lucas felt his jaw tighten. Personal life meaning what, Mara? She looked at him. She didn't answer at first. Personal life meaning what? He asked again. She took a breath. His lawyer is going to argue that I'm in a relationship with a man who is not. Who doesn't fit the kind of man a CEO of a wealth management firm should be in a relationship with. That's the language they're going to use. Lucas stared at her. What does that mean? It means... She closed her eyes for a second. It means they're going to bring up your background, your job, your race, your son. They're going to bring all of it up. They're going to put it in front of a judge and try to make me look unstable for being with you. The silence on the porch was heavy. Penny's tail thumped softly against the wooden floor. Lucas didn't say anything for a long time. He just looked out at the dark backyard. Mara. Yes. When is the court date? 3 weeks. Will I have to be there? No, Lucas. I would never ask you to do that. I would never put you through that. I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know what's coming. And I wanted to give you the chance to... She trailed off. To what? To walk away. If you want to. Before it gets ugly. I would understand. I really would. Lucas turned his head and looked at her. Mara. Yes. I'll be there. Lucas. I'll be there. You don't have to. I'll be there. In a suit, in the front row, where everybody can see me. I'll be there. She started to cry. Quietly. Just a few tears running down her face in the soft porch light. He reached over and took her hand for the first time. He didn't let go. He held her hand for a long time on that back porch. Neither one of them said anything for a while. Penny stretched out across both of their feet and let out a soft sigh. Lucas? Yeah. You don't know what you're walking into. I know exactly what I'm walking into. No, you don't. You don't know what these kinds of lawyers do. They will tear you apart, Lucas. They will take your whole life, and they will twist it, and they will hold it up in front of a judge, and they will make you look like the worst version of yourself you have ever seen. Let them try. Lucas, Mara, listen to me. I spent 20 years in the United States Navy. I have been shot at. I have been buried in sand. I have buried friends. I have written letters to mothers. There is nothing some lawyer in a $1,000 suit can say in a courtroom that's going to break me. Nothing. She squeezed his hand. It isn't just you, Lucas. It's Ethan. They might bring him up too. They might use his name. They might bring up the fact that you're a single father. They might say things that hurt. He was quiet for a long second. Then I'll talk to him. You'll tell him. I'll tell him. He's 12 years old, Mara. He's not a baby, and he's smarter than I was at his age. He deserves to know what's happening. Are you sure? I'm sure. She rested her head against his shoulder. He felt the warmth of her hair against the side of his neck. He closed his eyes for a second. Lucas, Yeah. Why are you doing this for me? Because you're worth doing it for. Nobody has ever said that to me before. Then they were all blind Mara. Every last one of them. He told Ethan the next afternoon. They were sitting in the kitchen. Ethan was eating a bowl of cereal at the table. Lucas was leaning against the counter with a fresh cup of coffee in his hands, even though he didn't really want it. He just needed something to hold on to. Son? Yeah, Dad? I need to talk to you about something. Ethan looked up. He set his spoon down. The look on his face was the same look he had given Lucas the day his mother left 4 years ago. Wide eyes. Quiet. Waiting. Is it bad? It's serious. It's not bad, but it's serious. Okay. Lucas set his coffee down. He pulled out the chair across from Ethan and sat down so he could look him in the eye. Mara has a court case coming up. Her ex-husband is trying to take some things from her. Money. He's trying to make her look like a bad person in front of a judge so he can get money from her that he doesn't deserve. Okay. And his lawyers are going to bring me up. And they might bring you up. They might say things about us, about me, about our family. They might say things that aren't true or that are kind of true, but twisted or that just hurt to hear. Ethan was quiet for a long second. Why would they say things about us? Because they're trying to make Mara look bad. And they think that if they make me look bad, she looks bad too, by being with me. That doesn't make sense, Dad. I know it doesn't, son. But that's how some people fight. They don't fight fair. They fight to win. Ethan picked at the edge of the cereal bowl with his fingernail. Dad. Yeah. Are they gonna say something about us being black? Lucas's chest tightened. He looked at his son, his 12-year-old son, with his mother's eyes and his father's stubborn jaw. They might, son. Why? Because some people think that if they make a small thing about race, it'll change the way another person sees the whole picture. It's an old trick. It's been around a long time. Some people still use it. That's not right, Dad. No, son, it isn't. What are you gonna do? Lucas took a slow breath in through his nose. I'm gonna sit in the front row of that courtroom in a clean suit. I'm gonna look that judge in the eye. And I'm gonna let everybody in that room see exactly who I am. I'm gonna let them say whatever they want to say. And I'm gonna keep showing up. For Mara. For me. For you. For all of us. Ethan looked at him for a long time. His eyes were glassy. But he didn't cry. Dad? Yeah, son. I want to come. No. Dad, I want to come. Ethan, listen to me. You are not coming to that courtroom. You are 12 years old. That is not a place for a 12-year-old. But she's gonna need us. Both of us. Lucas looked at his son. He felt something hot push up behind his eyes. Son, you do something for me instead. You stay home. You go to school. You make good grades. You help Mrs. Patterson with her groceries, and you wait for me at home. And the second I walk through that door, I'll tell you everything. Deal. Ethan thought about it. Deal. But Dad? Yeah. Tell Mara something for me. What? Tell her I think she's brave. And tell her that Penny needs her. And so do we. Lucas couldn't speak for a second. I'll tell her, son. And Dad? Yeah. I love her too, I think. A little bit. Like the way I love Mrs. Patterson. But more, I think. Lucas reached across the kitchen table and put his hand on top of his son's hand. You're a good boy, Ethan Reed. You're a good dad, Lucas Reed. The 3 weeks went by slowly. Lucas helped Mara prepare. Not legally. He didn't know anything about wealth management law. But he helped her in the small ways. He cooked dinner at her house twice a week so she could keep working with her lawyers. He kept Penny entertained when Mara was on long phone calls. He sat next to her on the couch at night when she stared at the ceiling and couldn't sleep. On the night before the court date, she sat at her kitchen table going through her testimony one last time. Her lawyer Janet had drilled her on it for hours. She knew every word. She knew every answer. She knew every objection Daniel's lawyer was likely to raise, but at 1 in the morning, she set the papers down and put her face in her hands. "I can't do this, Lucas." He was standing at the kitchen sink washing the last of the dinner dishes. He turned and looked at her. "Yes, you can. I can't. I can't sit in that room with him again. I can't listen to them say things about you and about Ethan and about me. I can't." He dried his hands on a towel. He walked over to the table. He pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. "Mara, look at me." She lifted her face from her hands. "You built a 400-employee company from a one-room office above a bakery. You did that. You worked 20-hour days and ate cereal for dinner for 18 months, and you built something that none of those men in that courtroom tomorrow could ever build in 3 lifetimes. You can sit in that room. You can do this. Do you hear me?" She nodded slowly. The tears were running down her face. "Lucas?" "Yeah." "What if I lose?" "You're not gonna lose." "What if I do? Then you lose some money, and we go home, and we have dinner, and we keep going." Just like that. Just like that. She let out a shaky laugh. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple, Mara. Money comes and money goes. People stay. The right people stay." She reached over and took his hand. She held it tight. "Lucas Reed, I think I am falling in love with you." He looked at her. He didn't say it back. He couldn't say it back yet. He didn't know how. But he squeezed her hand, and he held it, and he didn't let go. The morning of the court date, Lucas put on the dark gray suit he had bought for his father's funeral. He hadn't worn it since. The shoulders still fit. The pants were a little loose. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror and tightened his tie 3 times before he got it right. Ethan was sitting on the edge of the bathtub watching him. "Dad?" "Yeah, son?" "You look good." "I look like I'm going to a funeral." "You look strong." Lucas turned and looked at his son. "Thank you, son. Are you nervous?" "A little." "Don't be." "Why not?" "Because Mara needs you not to be." Lucas almost smiled. He nodded slowly. "You're right, Ethan. You're absolutely right." He dropped Ethan off at school. Then he drove downtown. He picked Mara up at her house at 8:30. She was wearing a dark navy suit. Her hair was pulled back into a low bun. She looked like a woman who ran 412 people. She also looked like a woman who hadn't slept in 3 days. "You ready?" he asked. "No." "Get in the truck, Mara." She got in the truck. They drove downtown in silence. He held her hand at every red light. The courtroom was on the 18th floor of a tall glass building. Janet, her lawyer, was already waiting outside the courtroom doors when they got off the elevator. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper handshake. "Mara, we're ready. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." "And this must be Lucas." "Yes, ma'am. It's good to meet you. Sit in the front row. Don't react to anything they say, no matter what. Just sit there. Look at the judge. Don't look at Daniel. Don't look at his lawyers. Just look at the judge. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good man." They walked into the courtroom together. Lucas took his seat in the front row right behind where Mara would be sitting. He folded his hands in his lap. He kept his back straight. He kept his face calm. He watched as Daniel walked into the room. Daniel was a tall man, thin, expensive suit, silver hair combed back perfectly. He didn't look at Mara when he walked in. He didn't look at Lucas. He just walked to his table and sat down and started arranging papers like he was at a business meeting. Lucas watched him. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. But inside his chest, something was burning slow and steady, like a fire that had been waiting to be lit. The judge came in. Everyone stood. Then everyone sat. The proceedings began. Daniel's lawyer was a man named Whitlock. He was loud. He was confident. He paced back and forth in front of the judge's bench like an actor in a movie. He spoke about hidden assets. He spoke about offshore accounts that Lucas was pretty sure didn't exist. He spoke about questionable judgment and emotional instability. Lucas didn't move. He kept his hands folded in his lap. He kept looking at the judge. Then Whitlock said it. "Your Honor, we would also like to draw the court's attention to the personal circumstances of Mrs. Whitfield in the months following the divorce. Mrs. Whitfield has entered into a relationship with a man whose background, profession, and personal history raise questions about her judgment. She is the CEO of a wealth management firm with a fiduciary responsibility to her clients. And in her personal life, she has chosen to associate herself with Objection, Your Honor." Janet was already on her feet. "Mrs. Whitfield's personal life is not on trial here. Her relationships have nothing to do with the question of asset disclosure." "Your Honor," Whitlock said smoothly, "her personal judgment goes directly to her credibility as a witness, and—" "Sustained. Mr. Whitlock, move on." Lucas felt Mara's shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. He didn't move. He kept his face still. He kept his hands folded. But Whitlock wasn't done. He turned and looked directly at Lucas. Right at him, in the front row. He gave a small, smug smile. "Your Honor, with all due respect, the court should be aware that Mr. Reed, a Navy veteran and single father, has been a very visible presence in Mrs. Whitfield's life for several months now. His son has been frequently seen at her home. Photographs exist. The relationship has progressed quickly. We believe this raises serious concerns about Mrs. Whitfield's—" "Objection, Your Honor." "Sustained. Mr. Whitlock, I have warned you. Move on, now." Whitlock turned back to his papers, but the words were already in the air, already in the room, already in the record. Lucas didn't move. He kept looking at the judge, but inside his chest, the slow burn was getting hotter. Mara took the stand at 11 o'clock. She was steady. Her voice did not shake. She answered every question Whitlock threw at her with calm, clear, precise language. She knew her business. She knew her finances. She knew her own life. And she would not be moved. Whitlock tried to break her. He went at her for almost 2 hours. He asked the same questions different ways. He tried to trap her. He tried to confuse her. He tried to make her angry. She did not break. When he finally sat down, the judge called a recess. Lucas stood up the second the judge banged his gavel. He walked out into the hallway. He needed air. He leaned against the wall outside the courtroom and closed his eyes. A voice spoke beside him. "Mr. Reed?" He opened his eyes. It was Daniel. The man was standing 2 feet away from him. Tall, thin, silver hair. Looking at Lucas like he was something he had stepped on. "That's me. I want a word with you." "I don't think you do." "Just a moment of your time." Lucas pushed off the wall. He stood up to his full height. He was 3 inches taller than Daniel. He had 30 pounds of Navy muscle on him. "Make it quick." Daniel took a small step back. "You don't know what you're getting into with her." "Sir, walk away. She isn't who you think she is. She uses people. She used me for 11 years. She'll use you too, especially a man like you. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Lucas took 1 step forward. He kept his voice low. He kept it calm. He kept it Navy. "Sir, I am going to give you exactly 5 seconds to walk away from me. Because if you say one more word about that woman, or about the kind of man I am, you are going to find out something about yourself that you have spent your entire life avoiding. Do we understand each other?" Daniel's mouth opened. Then it closed. He took another step back. Then he turned and walked away down the hallway. Lucas stood there breathing slow through his nose. His hands were shaking. He hadn't even realized it. "Lucas?" He turned. Mara was standing in the hallway behind him. She had seen the whole thing. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For almost losing my temper with that man." She walked up to him. She put her hand flat on his chest, right over his heart. "Lucas Reed, you did not almost lose your temper. You stood there in front of the man who broke my life and you held the line. That's not losing your temper. That's being a man." He looked down at her. "Mara." "Yes." We are going to win this thing. You think so? I know so. She stood up on her toes and kissed him on the cheek, right there in the courthouse hallway, with people walking past them, with lawyers carrying briefcases, with the elevator dinging in the background. It was the second time her lips had touched his skin. He held the spot with his fingertips for a second after she pulled away. The afternoon went faster than the morning. Mara's lawyer, Janet, brought in 3 witnesses who completely dismantled Daniel's story about hidden assets, bank records, tax documents, statements from her accountant. The numbers all added up. The numbers had always added up. And Janet made the judge look at every single one of them. By 4 o'clock, the judge had heard enough. He took 30 minutes in his chambers. When he came back, he looked at Daniel. He looked at Whitlock. He looked at the papers in front of him. Then he ruled in Mara's favor on every single count. Every single count. The hidden assets claim was dismissed. The settlement demand was denied. The personal conduct argument was struck from the record entirely. And the judge added one final line. Mr. Whitfield, this court has reviewed the evidence carefully. There is no merit to any of these claims. I will note for the record that I find this entire proceeding to have been brought in bad faith. You will pay Mrs. Whitfield's legal fees in full. We are adjourned. The gavel came down. Lucas exhaled for what felt like the first time in 9 hours. Mara turned around in her seat. She looked at him over her shoulder. She was crying, but she was smiling. A real, full, broken open smile. He smiled back. They drove home in silence. He held her hand at every red light just like he had in the morning. But this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was light. It was the kind of silence that comes after you have carried something too heavy for too long and finally set it down. When they pulled into her driveway, she turned to him. Lucas. Yeah. Come inside, please. He turned the truck off. They walked up the front steps together. She unlocked the front door. Penny was waiting on the other side, tail wagging so hard her whole body shook. Mara let the dog out into the backyard. Then she turned and looked at Lucas in her front hallway. Mara. Yes. There's something I need to say to you. Okay. I've been trying to figure out how to say it for 2 months, and I keep waiting for the right moment. And I keep deciding the right moment hasn't come yet. But I think the right moment was every moment. And I've been a coward. Lucas. Mara. I love you. I love you. I have loved you since the night you walked through the door at the Lakeside Cafe 23 minutes late. I have loved you since you reached your hand across the table and didn't quite touch mine. I have loved you since you let my son roll around in your backyard with your dog. I have loved you since you sat on your back porch and asked me what I want for myself. I love you, Mara Whitfield. I love you. And I am terrified of saying it out loud. But I am more terrified of never saying it at all. She was already crying. Lucas Reed. Yes. I love you too. He took 2 steps across the hallway and pulled her into his arms. He held her there for a long, long time. Penny scratched at the back door. Neither of them moved. Outside, somewhere in the dark, a spring breeze moved through the oak trees on the quiet street. And Lucas Reed, the Navy man, the single father, the man who had not believed in love for 4 long years, finally let himself believe again. He didn't let her go for a long time. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his chest. He could feel her breathing slow down against his ribs. Penny was still scratching at the back door. Neither of them moved to open it. Lucas? Yeah. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Mara Whitfield. She laughed. A small, broken, beautiful laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep down, where a person has been keeping the lights off for years. I'm not letting you go, she said. Not tonight. Not ever. I'm just telling you that. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not going anywhere. You promise? I promise. She pulled back and looked up at him. Her eyes were red. Her makeup was a mess. She looked tired, the way people look tired after a battle that has finally ended. "Lucas, where's Ethan tonight?" "Mrs. Patterson's. She said she'd keep him until I called." "Call her. Tell her you'll get him in the morning. Tell her thank you." "Mara, just tonight. Just stay tonight. I don't want to be alone in this house tonight. Not after today." He nodded. He pulled out his phone. He called Mrs. Patterson. The conversation took about 30 seconds. The old woman didn't even ask why. She just said, "You take your time, Lucas. That boy is sound asleep on my couch already. He can sleep here tonight and I'll get him to school in the morning." "Thank you, ma'am." "Anytime, sweetheart." He hung up. Mara was already walking toward the back door to let Penny in. The dog came barreling through the kitchen and stopped right between them and looked up at both of them like she was wondering what was going on. Mara crouched down and wrapped both arms around the dog's neck. "We won, Penny. We won. Daddy didn't get anything. He didn't get anything from us." The dog licked her face. Lucas stood there in the kitchen and watched, and he knew right then that this was his life now. This kitchen, this dog, this woman crying into a golden retriever's fur. This was where he lived now, even if he didn't sleep here every night, even if he kept the little house on Maple Street. This was home. So, the next few months passed in a way that felt like waking up from a long sleep. Lucas kept his job. Mara kept her company. They didn't move in together. Not yet. They both knew Ethan needed his school routine and his neighborhood and his bus stop. They didn't want to disrupt his life. He had been through enough disruption already, but Saturday nights became Friday and Saturday nights, and then most weeknights. And then Lucas started keeping a toothbrush at her house. And then a few shirts in her closet. And then his old navy duffel bag in the corner of the guest room. Ethan loved it. He loved Mara's big backyard. He loved Penny. He loved Mara's kitchen and the way she let him crack the eggs when she made breakfast. He loved that there was a basketball hoop in the driveway and that Mara would shoot free throws with him for an hour at a time, even though she had never played basketball in her life and could not make a basket if you spotted her 3 feet from the rim. "Mara, you're terrible at this." "I know, sweetie." "How are you so bad?" "I'm a CEO, Ethan. I'm not a basketball player." "You're worse than my grandma." "That's a very rude thing to say about your grandma." "My grandma can dunk." "Your grandma cannot dunk, Ethan Reed." "You don't know my grandma." Lucas would sit on the front porch and listen to the two of them argue about basketball and laugh until his stomach hurt. Marcus and Dwayne came over for a barbecue one Saturday in June. Marcus walked into the backyard, took one look at Lucas standing at the grill with Mara at his side and Ethan throwing a tennis ball for Penny, and he stopped dead in his tracks. "Brother?" "What?" "You did not tell me she was this beautiful." "Marcus!" "You did not tell me, Reed. I am going to have words with you about this later." "Marcus, I swear to God." Mara came over and shook Marcus's hand, and then Dwayne's hand. She was wearing a sundress, and her hair was down, and she was smiling that quiet, real smile she had taken to wearing more and more often these days. "Marcus, Dwayne, I owe you both a thank you." "For what, ma'am?" "For setting this up. For pushing him out the door. He told me you had to drag him to that cafe." "I did not drag him," Marcus said immediately. "I was very respectful and very persuasive and—" "You threatened to come over and physically put me in the truck," Lucas said. "That was a joke." "It was not a joke, Marcus." "It was sort of a joke." Mara laughed. She put her hand on Marcus's arm. "Whatever you did, thank you. I mean it. From the bottom of my heart." Marcus looked at her. He looked at Lucas. He looked back at her. Then his eyes got a little wet. Marcus, the loudest man Lucas had ever known, the man who could not stop talking for 25 years, stood there in Mara's backyard with his mouth open and nothing coming out. "Brother," he finally said quietly, "I'm so happy for you." "Thank you, Marcus." "I mean it." "I know. This is good. This is real good." "Yeah, It is. Marcus reached out and pulled Lucas into a hug. The kind of hug men only give each other once or twice in a lifetime. Then he stepped back and turned to Ethan, who was watching the whole thing from the lawn. "Little man, get over here. Tell me about basketball season." And just like that, Marcus was Marcus again. Loud. Hugging the boy, asking 10 questions a minute, picking up Penny like she was a puppy even though she weighed 65 pounds. Lucas stood at the grill and looked at his life. And for a long second, he could not believe it was his. The summer turned into fall. Ethan started 7th grade. Mara's company landed a major new client, and she had to fly to Chicago for 2 weeks. While she was gone, Lucas went over to her house every night to feed Penny and walk her around the neighborhood. The dog cried by the front door every night when he left. It broke his heart a little every single time. When Mara came home from Chicago, she walked through the front door, dropped her suitcase, and sank down onto the floor in the entryway. Penny immediately ran over and curled up next to her. Lucas walked in from the kitchen. "Mara." "Lucas. You okay?" "I'm so tired. I'm so tired." "Come on. Let me get you up." He helped her to her feet. He walked her into the bedroom. He pulled back the covers. He took her shoes off. He pulled the comforter up to her chin. "I love you," she mumbled. "I love you too. Sleep." She was out before he finished pulling the door closed. He went to the kitchen and made her favorite tea and set it on her nightstand for when she woke up. He fed Penny. He locked the front door. He sat on her back porch for an hour, just watching the leaves come down off the oak trees. When she finally woke up 4 hours later, she came stumbling out into the kitchen in her pajamas, and her hair was a mess, and there was a pillow crease across her cheek. She looked at him standing at the stove making her dinner. She started to cry. "What's wrong?" he said immediately. "Nothing." "Mara, nothing's wrong, Lucas. I came home, and there was somebody here. There was somebody waiting for me. There was tea on the nightstand, and I am not used to that. I am still not used to that." He turned the burner off. He walked across the kitchen. He pulled her into his arms. "You can get used to it, Mara." "Can I?" "Yeah, you can." "How long does it take?" "I don't know. I'm getting used to it too. We'll figure it out together." In November, on a cold Saturday afternoon, Ethan came into the kitchen of Mara's house, where Lucas was standing at the counter peeling potatoes for dinner. "Dad." "Yeah, son." "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask me anything." "Are you gonna marry Mara?" Lucas set the peeler down slowly. He turned around. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because I want to know." "Ethan." "I'm just asking, Dad." Lucas leaned back against the counter. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should marry her." "Why?" "Because she makes you laugh." Lucas didn't say anything for a long second. "She does, doesn't she?" "All the time, Dad. You laugh all the time now. You didn't used to laugh ever, and now you laugh all the time." "Yeah, son, I do. And she's nice to me." "She's very nice to you." "And Penny needs us." "Penny needs us. So I think you should marry her, Dad." Lucas looked at his son, his 12-year-old son, who had grown 2 inches over the summer, who was almost up to his shoulder now, who was going to be taller than him in a few years. "I'll think about it, son." "You should think about it tonight." "Why tonight?" "Because Christmas is coming, and it would be a really good Christmas present." Lucas almost laughed out loud. "You're a sneaky kid, Ethan Reed." "I'm a smart kid, Dad. You're both." "Thank you." He went back to the living room to play with Penny. Lucas stood at the counter and stared at the potatoes for a long time. Then he put down the peeler and walked into the den where Mara was on a phone call. He waited until she finished the call. She set the phone down and looked up at him. "What?" "Nothing. I just wanted to look at you for a second." "Lucas?" "What?" "Why are you looking at me like that?" "No reason." "Lucas Reed, what are you not telling me?" He smiled. Nothing. I just love you, that's all. I just love you. She laughed. She turned back to her computer. He walked back to the kitchen. He picked up the peeler. But he was already thinking. Christmas Eve came. Snow was falling outside Mara's windows. Penny was curled up by the fireplace. Ethan was sitting on the couch wearing a red sweater that Mara had bought him, with a paper plate full of cookies in his lap. Lucas stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. Mara was at the dining room table lighting candles for dinner. She was wearing a green dress. She looked so beautiful, Lucas had to look at the floor for a second to steady himself. He had been carrying the small black box in his pocket for 3 days. Ethan looked at him. Ethan knew. Of course Ethan knew. Lucas had told him this morning. The boy had hugged him so tight, Lucas thought his ribs might crack. Lucas walked into the dining room. Mara? Yes. Sit down, please. She turned around. She looked at his face. She knew. Of course she knew. The way women always know. Lucas? Sit down, Mara. She sat down. He got down on one knee in front of her chair. He pulled the small black box out of his pocket. He opened it. The ring inside was simple, a single diamond. Nothing flashy, nothing showy. Just a small, beautiful, honest ring. Mara Whitfield. Lucas, I am 46 years old. I have been a Navy man, and a single father, and a tired man, and a broken man. I have not believed in love for 4 long years. I did not think I would ever believe in it again. And then, a woman walked into a cafe on a Friday night, 23 minutes late. And she sat down across from me. And she changed everything. She changed me. She changed my son. She gave us back something we did not even know we had lost. Mara, I am asking you, will you marry me? Will you marry us? Will you let us be your family? She was crying. Penny had come over from the fireplace and was sitting next to him looking up at Mara like she was waiting for the answer too. Ethan was standing in the doorway with his hands over his mouth. Mara nodded. She couldn't speak yet. She just nodded. Yes. She finally got out. Yes, Lucas Reed. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. She fell out of the chair into his arms. They knelt there together on the dining room floor. Ethan came running in from the doorway and wrapped his arms around both of them. Penny was barking and licking Mara's face. A family. A real, full, messy, loud family. Lucas held both of them in his arms, and he closed his eyes, and he could not stop the tears that were running down his face. He did not even try to stop them. They got married the following May. A small ceremony, just the people who mattered. Marcus was the best man. Dwayne walked Mara down the aisle since her own father had passed years before. Linda was the maid of honor. Mrs. Patterson sat in the front row and cried through the whole thing. Ethan stood next to his father. He was 13 now. He had grown another 2 inches since Christmas. He looked so much like his father in his small black suit that Marcus actually let out a low whistle when he saw him. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," Lucas pulled Mara into his arms and kissed her in front of everyone they loved. Penny, who they had walked down the aisle on a leash with a small bouquet tied to her collar, sat down right at their feet and put her chin on Mara's shoe. Everyone clapped. Ethan whistled the loudest. That night, after the reception, after the cake, after the dancing, after the last of the guests had finally gone home, Lucas and Mara and Ethan sat on the back porch of the house on the quiet street. The spring air was warm. The oak trees were full of new leaves. Penny was lying across all 3 of their feet, sound asleep. Mara had her head on Lucas's shoulder. Ethan was leaning against his other side, half asleep, still in his small black suit, but with his tie off and his shoes kicked off in the grass. Nobody said anything for a long, long time. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Dad?" "Yeah, son." "Do you remember that night in North Carolina?" "I remember." "The stars." I remember the stars. You said we were going to be okay. I remember. I think we're more than okay now, Dad. Lucas swallowed hard. He tightened his arm around his son. He tightened his other arm around his wife. Yeah, son, I think we are. Mara reached over and took Lucas's hand. She brought it up to her lips and kissed his knuckles. Lucas Reed. Yes, Mrs. Reed. I love you. I love you too. And Ethan. Yes, ma'am. I love you too, so much. I love you too, Mara. The porch was quiet again. The crickets were singing in the grass. Somewhere across town, a train whistle blew low and long in the dark. Lucas Reed sat on that porch with his wife on one side and his son on the other, and his dog at his feet. He looked up at the spring night sky. He thought about the man he had been a year and a half ago, the man who had slammed his fist on a table in a small lakeside cafe and decided that love was a lie. The man who had turned his back on hope so many times, he had forgotten what hope even looked like. That man was gone now. He had walked out of the lakeside cafe that night, even though he didn't know it at the time. He had walked out the moment the bell over the door had jingled, and he had stopped in his tracks for no reason in the world. He had never gone back. Some doors close, some doors open. And sometimes, every once in a long while, the right door opens at exactly the right moment and a stranger walks through it 23 minutes late, and your whole entire life changes forever in the span of a single heartbeat. Lucas Reed was home. He was finally home. And he was never going to be alone again. That was the truth of it. That was the whole truth of it. And it would stay true for the rest of his days on this earth. Because love, the real kind, the slow kind, the kind that walks through the door, late and stays for the rest of your life, does not come around twice. It comes around once, and when it does, you hold on to it, with both hands, with everything you have, with every breath in your body, and you do not ever let it go. Lucas Reed never let it go. Not once. Not ever. Until the very last day.